question is, if you have not incorporated force majeure clause in your agreement or contract, what recourse or defense does a party have who is at the default end in the current situation?
Yeah, so the answer to this in that sense lies in the second aspect which we discussed about evaluating whether your case would qualify to be an event of frustration, because unlike force majeure, which is a contractual remedy, frustration is purely independent of contract. So even if you don't have a contractual clause like a force majeure clause, you can invoke the remedy of frustration of discharge by way of frustration of contract purely on the basis of legal principles, provided you are able to show that the event is significant and the performance of your contract and your obligations in that sense has been rendered virtually impractical. So if you can show these aspects, you can demonstrate before a court and apply the doctrine of frustration while dealing with a situation where you do not have the benefit of a force majeure clause. However, having said that, it's always important to learn from this pandemic, this situation where many of us are confronted with this particular question. And in future contracts, it is imperative that we include clauses such as force majeure clauses and also the terms that we discussed, like defining a force majeure event to the extent possible. So your enforcement becomes much more easier. If there is a force majeure clause, the court will uphold that clause. So therefore, having a clause puts you in a much better position rather than not having a clause and depending on the purely legal concept of frustration, which in that sense is an exception and not the norm. But it's always better to include a clause to the extent possible.
Thank you. The next question is, how to determine the contract falls under Section 32 or 56 of the Contract Act?
So Section 32 is a very, very specific situation which says if a contract is contingent on happening of a future event, it will not be enforced until that future event happens. Section 32 can be looked at in the context of force majeure clauses. In fact, there was a recent Supreme Court judgment in the matter of NAFID, where it was held that force majeure clauses will be interpreted in the context of Section 32, namely being a contingent contract. Section 56, on the other hand, is a far more important provision to deal with frustration, where contracts become impossible to perform because of a subsequent event which is unforeseen. So tomorrow, if you are performing a contract, everything is going fine, but subsequently some event happens which is completely dehors or independent of your contract, and that renders performance impossible. Recourse will be taken to Section 56, which provides for discharge by way of frustration of contracts. So that's the essential difference between 32 and 56. 32 in that sense is a limited doctrine. It talks about contingencies and contingencies on the happening of which certain rights and remedies will devolve. 56 rather talks about impossibility to perform a contract which may today be legal and possible may tomorrow become impossible to perform if there is a future uncertain event which impedes the performance. So that's the essential difference between these two sections.
Zerek, there is a follow-up of the same thing what you have just discussed with a slight difference. The question here is situations where the key person, partner or proprietor is incapacitated due to illness which is prolonged. Would the situation classify under 32 or 56?
So here, in that sense, the fundamentals to this lies in the doctrine of Companies Act, which talks about companies, particularly dealing with companies being separate legal entities in that sense. And the performance of obligations may not really be dependent on key persons or any particular individual, because talking about companies have separate legal existence. If you are entering into a contract, as far as a company is concerned, then the contract is enforceable against the company. It is not enforceable against key managerial personnel or any particular individual, and therefore incapacitation of an individual will not really affect the performance of a contract as far as the company is concerned. Now, as far as sole proprietorships and individuals are concerned, if he is incapacitated for reasons beyond his control, and if he has recourse to clauses under the contract, be it a force majeure clause, an act of God clause, he can always take recourse, saying that he is incapacitated, showing that his incapacitation is covered under the clause, and take recourse to that. And applying these legal principles of 56 and 32, he can also take recourse to the doctrine of frustration, where if the incapacitation in that sense is permanent in nature, or it is because of an event beyond his control, which completely destroys the contract and renders it incapable of performance, in such a case, the contract will be frustrated under 56. For an example, if you read the Contract Act, it has an illustration about a person agreeing to perform in an auditorium on a given day. And what happened on the day which was scheduled for performance, there was an event where there was a fire and the auditorium broke down. Obviously, the contract was frustrated. So in such a situation, recourse can be taken to the doctrine of frustration. But as I said, in a company, the situation will be very different. Companies have separate legal existence. Key managerial personnel, individual may not be able to manage from the obligations, taking recourse to individual remedies. But the situation will be looked at holistically from the company's perspective. So for instance, today, where the companies are non-functional because of the lockdown and the pandemic, you can always take recourse to the force majeure clause in your contract and avail.
Can issue of frustration of contract and impossibility of performance be tried in arbitration first if there is a clause relating to arbitration in the agreement?
Absolutely. So talking about arbitration, arbitration is a special mode of dispute resolution which is agreed to by and between the parties. So wherever you have an arbitration clause in your contract, in such a case, if there is any dispute under the contract, including any dispute in connection with enforceability of a force majeure clause, or any dispute concerning discharge of the contract by way of frustration, such a dispute will necessarily go to arbitration, because in your contract you have availed of an arbitration clause, which is the only remedy you can take recourse to, and therefore the jurisdiction of courts in that sense to determine this dispute is ousted. Whenever you have an arbitration clause, the dispute will always go to arbitration. If you don't have an arbitration clause, of course, the dispute will go to courts. So in that sense, disputes to deal with force majeure, frustration, all will go to arbitration if you have an arbitration clause. It's a very interesting concept where they call arbitration clauses, which they describe, are like lifeboats in a sinking ship. So the lifeboats represent the arbitration clause and the sinking ship represent the contract. So even if the contract falls, even if the contract is declared voidable or void, the arbitration clause still survives. It's an independent contract in that sense. And any dispute concerning the contract or the agreement will go to arbitration if you have an arbitration clause. In fact, under Section 8 of the Arbitration Act, if you have an arbitration clause and if you file a suit or a proceeding, the courts will necessarily refer you back to arbitration. So whenever there is an arbitration clause, enforceability will always be by means of arbitration. Of course, parallelly, courts will have jurisdiction under Section 9 of the Arbitration Act, under Section 34 of the Arbitration Act. Section 9 deals with interim reliefs. Section 34 deals with enforcement of awards. So in that sense, there is an interplay between the judiciary and the arbitral tribunal. Arbitration tribunal will decide the merits of the principal dispute, whereas you can also at the same time approach the courts for interim reliefs prior to the constitution of arbitral tribunals. So here is a fine interplay between courts, the judiciary, and arbitral tribunals. But to answer your question, if your agreement has an arbitration clause, any dispute to deal with force majeure or frustration will eventually be decided by the arbitrators and in arbitration.
Can novation be a remedy to counter the effect of the pandemic on contracts if the parties agree to do so?
Yes, so the answer lies in the last 4-5 words of your question, if the parties agree to do so. So the concept of novation is about parties by mutual consent working out a new agreement. So novation happens when you change an essential condition of your contract. For example, if you agree upon a different pricing method or a price situation or a different consideration medium, or you reduce the consideration, change the matter and the manner in which consideration has to be computed. If there is any material change, in such a situation, the contract will be treated as a novated contract. And novation, as a general rule, can only happen if the parties agree to the change. So therefore, for novation to happen, it is essential that the parties agree to the change. Now, the only exception, I'll give you a very interesting example of something which is a slight exception to this rule, which is very, very unique and very, very rare. So in long-term infrastructure contracts, which span over 20 years, 30 years, you have something which we know as renegotiation clauses or hardship clauses. In such a situation, what the clauses normally read, that if after entering into the contract, if there is a change in law which substantially affects the rights of the parties, in such a case, parties have to renegotiate and parties have to come up with an amended agreement. So the question is, what happens if the parties in such a situation recognize the change in law, recognize the impact, but are unable to agree on a novated contract, are unable to agree to an amendment? In such a situation, only in this limited case, if the matter goes to court or an arbitral tribunal, there is an international standard under the aegis of the United Nations, known as the UNIDROIT principles, which say that in such a situation where parties are unable to negotiate and unable to bring about a change, in such a case, the courts will step in, the arbitrators will step in, and the arbitrators will bring about a new contract which adapts to the changed circumstance. So, for instance, after entering into the contract, there is a new tax which is introduced, which completely changes the equilibrium, which completely changes the commercial premise. In such a situation, the clause will tell you that both parties should get together and try and work out a solution and come up with an amended, novated agreement. However, if they are unable to agree, then the matter will be referred to arbitration as a dispute, and the arbitrators can bring about a change, they can bring about a novation and adapt the contract to the changed circumstance. So this is a very, very exceptional case, a very, very exceptional rule. It's not the norm, it's not the standard. Normally for novation, parties have to agree. But in such a situation where you have a change in law clause, like the one we discussed, in such a situation, the court may be able to adapt a new contract, a novated contract, to the changed factual matrix. So this is something which can be kept.
More question is, from the energy watchdog judgment, I understand that section 56 cannot be applied to a contract having a force majeure clause. However, can you say that section 56 provides for the consequences of force majeure in the event the FM clause is silent on the issue of consequence?
It's a very interesting question, particularly dealing with energy watchdog. In fact, when you have a force majeure clause within your contract, in that sense, it will limit the application of the doctrine of frustration. So here, you have agreed to a specific clause and a specific situation where you yourself have provided that there are certain situations, certain occurrences of future events which will be treated as a force majeure event. And you have even excluded in a clause, like in this case, certain aspects which will necessarily give you the remedy of a force majeure situation. So in this case, in fact, they had excluded certain remedies in their force majeure clause. And therefore, the doctrine of frustration, when you apply it, will in that sense be limited by the application of the force majeure clause, which is a clause which exists within your contract. And therefore, enforcing a frustration remedy would be even more difficult if your contract has a force majeure clause and you are unable to show the court that your factual situation qualifies for a remedy under your force majeure clause. So this is another very interesting situation which came out of this judgment. And the general principle here also, like in many other cases, is that both the doctrine of frustration and force majeure clauses have to be narrowly construed. So the courts will give a strict interpretation of the force majeure clause, and only if you qualify within those parameters will you get the remedy of force majeure. So this can be looked into that in this particular way, where there is a fine balance between a force majeure clause and the doctrine of frustration, where if you have provided for a force majeure, then it will limit the application of the doctrine of frustration.
Oh, great. One more question. What is the difference between force majeure and vis majeure?
Vis majeure, in that sense, is a Latin maxim which talks about act of God. Now, vis majeure is like any of these Latin maxims, which are generally accepted legal principles, which say that there are certain events which are beyond the control of the parties. So, it is a legal principle. So many a times you will see that even while you are dealing with cases in a general litigation scenario, you will rely upon settled principles which are incorporated in Latin maxims. For example, ignorantia juris non excusat is a very well settled legal principle that ignorance of law will not be excused. So tomorrow you cannot say, I did not know that this is a law and therefore I should not be punished. Like that, vis majeure is a legal concept which provides for a situation of act of God and situations which are beyond the control of the parties. Now, vis majeure, when it is applied to a contractual situation, it is the basis on which the concept of force majeure is evolved. So the concept of force majeure has its principal basis in the concept of vis majeure. So it is application of the vis majeure doctrine to a contract in the nature of a force majeure clause, which talks about situations. And one important aspect here is here a force majeure clause can be wider than the definition vis majeure, because vis majeure only talks about natural calamities and other acts of God beyond the control. In a force majeure clause, you can even provide for additional circumstances like an embargo or a court order or a regulation, like what we discussed earlier in the Madras case, where it was discussed that ban on dusty cargo by Madras High Court is another situation. Now it will not qualify for act of God, but it will qualify in a given situation either for a force majeure or a frustration event, because it is something beyond the control of a party. So to answer you, the application of the contractual concept of force majeure in that sense is wider, and there could be other circumstances which can also be incorporated, but the basis, the jurisprudential basis, is in the concept of vis majeure, namely the act of God or things which render circumstances beyond the control of the party. So it's a related concept.
For the day, Zerek, on behalf of PLEA, we thank you very much for so patiently explaining the concepts of contracts so well, and sharing with us your valuable insights and